How was your lunch? I ate the same thing you did. This lady does a good job. I'm telling you, you may pick up a few pounds while you're up here on this little jury duty we have. I hate to ask you this again, but I must. You all have followed my instructions and not discussed the case among yourselves. All right, very good. May call you next witness, sir.
Bradley Dixon.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
State your name for the record, please.
Bradley Dixon.
All right, Mr. Dixon, I'm going to ask you to speak up so everybody can hear you, okay?
Yep.
Where are you currently employed?
Pafford EMS in Tate County.
In Tate County is just to the north of here, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on December the 6th of 2014, where were you employed?
MedStat here in Batesville.
Were you doing the same, do you have the same responsibility for MedStat that you have now for Pafford?
Yes, sir.
And what was that responsibility?
I was the EMT of the ambulance.
And just so the jury's aware, what is the EMT of the ambulance? What are your job duties?
Assist the paramedic in his roles and responsibilities, handle certain things. I can do basic medical skills, but not as much as a paramedic. He's the primary care provider on the ambulance.
And are you also the driver?
Yes, sir.
So on December 6, 2014, were you the EMT that responded to Heron Road?
Yes, sir.
And who was the paramedic on board with you?
Josh Perkins.
And I believe a run report was done for MedStat, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Who prepared that report for MedStat?
Josh did.
Okay, so you did not prepare a report, Josh prepares it for you?
Correct.
I'm going to ask you, when you arrived on the scene at Heron Road, tell the jury what you saw as you were coming in.
So, of course, there's going to be fire trucks there. There was a few fire trucks there. A couple personal vehicles. I guess first responders showed up in their own vehicles.
Is that typical?
Yeah, on certain calls, especially far out in the county.
What was this particular call in reference to?
We got the call as a car fire and a possible burn patient.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So when we pulled up on scene, I parked beside one of the fire engines. When I arrive on scene, I try to look for possible patients. I don't pay attention to, outside. That's not my responsibilities to pay attention to, such as a car fire. So I didn't notice that right away. When I got out, I saw a couple firemen behind the fire engine kneel down beside what turned out to be the patient.
When you saw the patient, what was your first thought?
That we need a helicopter.
Why was that?
Helicopters used for severe patients. Since we're in a rural area, helicopter gets them to where they need to be quicker than what we can.
Describe her condition to the jury as you saw it.
When I first laid eyes on her, her condition was very poor. She was burned from the parts of her body that I saw first was completely burned. I didn't notice any part of her body that wasn't burned.
Describe the area of her mouth.
Her lips were real leathery, almost charred. Her face was third-degree burns. Eyelashes were gone. Eyebrows were gone. Her hair was a singed mass.
When you said you knew immediately you needed a helicopter, who do you relay that information to?
I relay it to my partner, Josh, make sure because ultimately it's his decision.
Who got to look at her first, you or Josh?
I don't recall.
Now, did Josh ultimately call for the helicopter?
He told me that he is okay with that decision, so then I went to the ambulance to get on the radio to tell our dispatch to call the helicopter.
Well, let me ask you about, everybody's got their roles, correct?
Yes, sir.
Your particular role as the EMT, is to assist a paramedic, is that?
Correct.
And I assume normally you can do that on the ground with the patient?
Yes, sir.
In this particular case, was there another person out there that could also assist in that manner?
It was.
Who was that?
Casey Austin,
And what is Casey Austin to your knowledge?
paramedic.
So we have another paramedic out there for help.
Correct.
At some point, did Casey help Josh? Did Casey assist Josh with the body?
Yes, sir.
And where did you go?
When I went to call for the helicopter, I got into the back of the ambulance and started getting a sterile burn sheet to take to my partner, and also to prepare for when the patient was brought to the back of the ambulance.
So you stayed in the ambulance.
After I took the sterile burn sheet to my partner and then went back to the ambulance to start preparing for the patient's arrival.
When you have a burn victim, what do you do inside the ambulance?
Normally, we have to start IVs, keep the patient very warm. The sterile burn sheets are used to limit infection risk and provide oxygen.
Did you do anything to the temperature controls inside the vehicle?
I did. I turned the heat all the way up.
And tell us how that works in an ambulance. Is it different than a car?
It is. You have one dial that has numbers on it, 65 to 85, and you just pick the temperature that you want.
So the heat was running?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever get out of the ambulance to help them load
No, sir.
the lady in?
No, sir.
Okay. Tell us what you did once she was loaded into the ambulance.
Once she was loaded in, I turned the oxygen tank on, hooked up the oxygen mask, also handed Josh, my partner, the IV setup, the IV supplies that you need to start an IV with.
And did Casey also get in the ambulance with you?
Yes, sir.
So you had two paramedics inside the ambulance.
Correct.
Did anybody else, what I call poke their head in or come in the ambulance?
They did.
Who was that?
Daniel Cole,
And was Daniel trying to talk to the young lady?
he was.
What was he saying?
Asking her, who did this to you?
And you said she had her oxygen on, is that correct?
Correct.
Where were you sitting?
I was at the head of her.
Okay. Was she able to respond at all?
She was.
And what did you hear her say?
The first time she responded, couldn't hardly hear her because of the oxygen mask and all the noise that was in the ambulance. So we had to ask her a couple times. Daniel was poking his head through the door, and I was leaning down to talk to her in her ear, just relaying what he was asking.
Describe her voice at that point.
Raspy, you could tell it was dry. You could tell her mouth was burnt, trouble speaking.
So was she speaking like me and you are right now?
No, sir.
Did you have trouble understanding what she said?
Yes, sir.
Did you ask her to repeat herself several times?
I did.
Ultimately, I believe Josh put in his report, and you thought you heard a name, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what name did you believe you heard?
Eric.
Out of all the time y'all were in the ambulance, how many words you think you were able to make out?
Maybe 3.
Outside of Eric, what were the other 2 words?
Thirsty and cold.
And in regards to her saying thirsty, was she able to enunciate that?
No, sir. You could make out that it was a 2-syllable word that sounded like thirsty, and I then asked her, are you saying you're thirsty? And she acknowledged with a head up and down.
When you say thirsty, your tongue hits the top of your mouth, is that right?
Correct.
Was she struggling in that capacity?
Correct.
What did thirsty sound like to you?
Thirsty.
And what other word were you able to realize?
Cold.
Is that typical of a burn patient?
It is.
Your Honor, I tender the witness.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dixon.
Good afternoon.
So you were the driver that day?
Correct.
Okay. And do you recall from memory what the at scene times were, what time you got to the patient who would have been Miss Jessica. Do you recall that from memory?
Not from memory. I had to look over.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness
You
to
may.
refresh his recollection? What does that appear to be to you that's before you?
Patient care report.
Okay. If you will, look sort of midway the page, and it talks about response times and mileage. You recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you will, what time does it appear that you arrived at the scene?
2029,
Okay. And so tell me what 2029 is.
8:29
That would be 8:20.
p.m.
Okay. PM. Okay. And the next thing would be, what time did you arrive at patient?
20:30 or 8:30 p.m.
8:30. Okay. Then the next time would be you departing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What time would that be?
20:42 or 8:42 p.m.
Okay. And then it has arrival at destination. What would that be?
20:44 or 8:44 p.m.
Okay. So basically, you got there at scene about 8:29. A minute passed, correct? When you got to Miss Jessica, which would be 8:30.
Correct.
And then departed about 12 minutes after that, correct?
Correct.
And then looks like it was a little bit longer going from when you departed to probably the arrival at the church,
Correct.
correct? And at the time that you were with Miss Jessica in the ambulance, you did hear her use the name Eric.
Correct.
Okay. I attended the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Your Honor, he's already got the run report. It's going to be Josh Perkins' report. I would ask it to be offered and received into evidence.
Sure. No objection.
All right. It's so marked and admitted. That's 13, is that right?
No further questions, Your Honor. I would ask that Mr. Dixon be finally released.
Give me just a minute.
Sorry, Captain. That report is actually a report that's prepared by the paramedic Josh Perkins. Is that correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, no further questions. I would ask this witness be finally released.
All right. Sir, you're finally excused. You may leave the courtroom or you can stay. Your choice. Yes, sir. Let me call your next witness.
Josh Perkins.
Raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
What is your name?
Joshua Perkins.
And where are you employed?
Currently lifeguard ambulance service here in Panola County.
And what position do you hold with them?
I'm a paramedic.
How long have you been a paramedic?
Since December 2010, so 7.5 years now.
So on December the 6th, 2014, you were a paramedic.
Correct.
And I don't believe at the time, it was a different ambulance service here in Panola County at the time, right?
Yes, sir, it was.
And who was that?
MedStat EMS.
Do you recall getting toned out to respond to an area on Heron Road?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, do you remember where you were when you got the call?
We were at the Batesville station. It was called Station 9.
And where is that located?
I believe the address is it's Highway 51 North. I don't remember the actual numerics of this.
Actually, it's just right over here, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it's right over there.
Almost parallel over from this building over on Highway 51?
Yes, sir, it's across the road from the library.
Okay. These folks from Pike County, so they're not familiar with Panola County,
Yes,
but
sir.
as crow flies, it's less than half a mile from here, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you got toned out, what was the nature of the tone that you received?
I believe it was a female with burns. There was not a very much specific information initially.
Okay. How does that work? Who actually calls you? Does the sheriff department call you, or do y'all have a dispatch that calls, or how does
Yes,
that
sir.
work?
At that point in time, you have your original 911 caller. I believe it went to Panola County Dispatch. Once they determined that an ambulance was needed, they forwarded it to MedStat's dispatch center in Winona, Mississippi.
Okay, and then your dispatch actually
Dispatch
calls
does.
and tells you what you got.
Yes, sir.
Once you leave and you're headed to the scene, do you make attempts to communicate with people or firefighters at the scene to give you updated information as you're going?
Yes, sir. Sometimes we do. We'll make that request to our dispatchers at MedStat, and they would call Panola dispatchers and gather what information they could.
Or were you able to gather any more information en route to Heron Road from right over here?
I do not recall anything specific.
Okay. Tell the jury what you found upon your arrival at our own Heron Road.
We pulled up to Heron Road. There was a volunteer firefighter pumper truck there on scene, several people around her. Jessica was wrapped up in blankets at the back of the fire truck. As we pulled up, I was in the front passenger seat, had my partner in the driver's seat. The way we pulled up, he could see her out his window. He looked out the window and turned around, looked at me and said, "It's real," as it's real bad. So I got out of the truck, went over, laid eyes on her. Yeah, it's real bad. Called for a helicopter. There's no hospital anywhere near here that can treat her appropriately. So
Let me ask you this, if you don't mind stopping for a second, John. If you would pull that microphone down a little bit, talking to it. When you say it's real bad, what did you see about Jessica? Let me ask you this.
Well,
Did you know Jessica at the time?
no, sir.
Okay. And you learned her name subsequent to treating her, is that correct?
She didn't mention. She was able to tell us her name.
Okay.
While we were there, yes, sir.
I'll get to that in a minute then.
Okay.
All right. What about what you were observing of her on the ground made you think immediately that you needed a helicopter?
Well, I did notice there was burns, a significant amount of burns on her body. At the time, there was not much of any hair left on her head. Looking at pictures of her before and after, it's a significant difference. I thought it was somebody with a short haircut until I got her in the back of the truck in proper lighting. You can see how severe her hair was burned away. But there on the ground, I could see that she was burned significantly and needed to be somewhere else in a different hospital.
And where did you notice the majority of the burns to be?
Oh, they were pretty much head to toe on her body, sir.
You generated a report
I did.
as a result of this. I'm going to hand you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 13 and ask you to look at that and tell me if you can identify that.
This is the report I wrote.
Okay, Josh, if you would go to the page after your narrative. And there appear to be 4 drawings on that page.
Yes, sir.
Does that look familiar?
Yes, sir.
And there appear to be a large number of numbers. I think it goes up to 32, or no, excuse me, up to 42. Is that, or excuse me, 51.
51 is the highest I'm seeing, yes, sir.
And what does these drawings depict?
Well, if you'll continue on to the next page, you can
Right.
see each site has a list, and the list what the site number is that corresponds with the pictures there. It lists which injury site it is. For example, number 1 is the upper extremity. It lists injury details. On this one, I put a burn char on the left bicep. If it's the way these are listed, you can, if it's a burn charring, as if it's listed as that, you can put it as a 3rd-degree burn. Burn blister would be a 2nd-degree burn on here, and I believe there's redness, which would be 1st degree. Yes,
So, Your Honor, could I just stand here and kind of publish this to the jury, what we're talking about, so they'll know?
Yes, sir, you may.
All right, so what I'm showing to the jury here is the diagrams or the locations of the burns that you noted as you were examining her and after you examined her and after you were writing the after incident report. Is that correct?
Yes.
So then you go to the next page, and each number that you see on the previous page now has a description of what the burns were that you observed on the body. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. When you were with her on the ground, did you do an assessment?
Yes, sir, what little bit I could. The lighting's not very well. She was wrapped up in the blanket, as I said. Pretty much looked at her and said, you know, we've got a significant amount of burns. We need to keep her warm, you know. At that point in time, we were unloading our stretcher, all our gear and everything, the burn sheets that we used for burn victims. And we placed her in that, wrapped her up in them, and got them in the truck, cut the heater on. Losing body heat's a big significant issue with people with burns like this, so we try to keep her as warm as possible with the burn sheets and the heater in the truck.
Okay. So who actually called for the helicopter?
I think I told Brad, I mean, as soon as we got there, I laid eyes on her, saw this was serious. I told Brad to call a helicopter. I believe he calls it on the radio, and then MedStat dispatch handles it from there.
And then the firefighters are responsible for getting the information to the helicopter about where to go. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. They typically set up the landing zone, and they know the local area the best.
When you got Jessica into the back of your ambulance, I believe you just testified that y'all pulled the gurney out, and what did you actually put on her at the scene before you put her into the back of the ambulance? I believe you said something about sterile blankets.
Yes, some burn sheets. Yes, sir.
All right, what is that exactly? Help the jury understand what that is.
It's a sheet that's just designed not to stick to burnt skin. It's also sterile. It means there's no germs and everything on it. It's nice and clean. And it also helps retain body heat as well.
And you put those on her, and then I would assume you put her on the gurney after that, and then
Yes,
put her
sir.
in the back of the ambulance?
Yes, sir.
All right, when you got into the back of the ambulance, were you talking to her?
Yes, sir. We were trying to ask her, you know, simple assessment questions, establish her mental status, things of that nature.
right.
She was able to tell us her name. Anything.
How describe her voice for me as you were attempting to talk with her.
Her voice was garbled whenever she was trying to talk to us. One can imagine she's probably inhaled a fair amount of hot heated gases, you know, during this whole burning process. There was soot in her airway as well whenever we looked in there. She could talk, but she had trouble enunciating certain syllables. It was real garbled whenever she spoke.
And did she in fact tell you her name?
Yeah, I remember clearly understanding Jessica. She had said Chambers, and I didn't understand it, but somebody else had asked her Chambers, and then she said, yes, I remember that.
Okay, and then what about, did you recall Daniel Cole being in there,
Not specifically, no, sir.
in your ambulance?
I'm sure he was, but I don't specifically remember.
Okay, do you remember anybody asking her who did this to you?
Yes, several people asked her that.
Okay, and do you remember any response that she might have had?
She said Eric, or tried to say Eric or Derek or something to that effect with those syllables.
Okay. And what other life-saving treatments were you attempting to give her?
We attempted to, outside of keeping them warm, you need to give them fluids as well. I could not find a vein on her body to start a regular IV on her, so we moved on to intraosseous access, which is the IV through a bone, basically. We're unable to do that as well. I was unable to drill. We have a drill, and it was unable to penetrate her tibia when we tried that.
In her leg?
In her leg, yes, sir.
Okay. At some point in time, so when y'all were actually on the hill, I called up on the hill where the fire was, you were unable to get any fluids into her. You were only able to get the burn blanket on and get her ready to be transported. Is that correct?
I think, let me check my times. And
Yeah,
make sure.
check your notes if you need to.
You're going to need to speak up a little louder. Into
Yes,
that
sir, I'm sorry, I
microphone.
apologize.
The jury's having a little trouble hearing you,
Okay.
sir. All right. They're a long way away from you.
Yes, sir. 140. Yes, sir, we tried the IO right before we transported, 2 minutes before.
And the IO is?
The intraosseous, the bone IV.
Eventually, you did transport her. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you transport her?
It was we ended up in the Shiloh Baptist Church parking lot. I believe it was 0.6 miles from where the scene was. I get a lot of feedback.
Was it six?
0.6 miles.
And what did you do upon your arrival at the landing zone?
At the landing zone, people were still questioning there. Somebody with the law enforcement was taking pictures. I think at that point we were simply just awaiting the helicopter to get there. We were watching her airway. Another issue with burn victims is their airway will begin to swell. They'll have breathing problems, and we were making sure that was not occurring. We were just monitoring her airway and waiting on the helicopter.
Do your notes reflect what time the helicopter got there?
I don't think they do specifically, no, sir.
Okay. I believe Bradley testified it wasn't real long after y'all got there, the helicopter got there. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. It wasn't a significant amount of time, no, sir.
What would be the protocols upon the helicopter arriving? Who actually takes control of the patient at the time the helicopter gets there?
I believe officially, as soon as the highest level of care there arrives, it's technically their patient from that point forward. When they arrive, they bring, their cardiac monitor, all their equipment. We're taking ours off, putting theirs on. I told them we were having trouble getting the IV access, and they had their IO, which was functional, and they were able to put in 2 IOs. And outside of that, once we did that, we put her on their cot and loaded her on our stretcher and put her in the aircraft, and they lifted.
Your Honor, tender the witness.
Cross?
Good afternoon, Mr.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Perkins. You don't have any idea of what time the firefighters and other possible paramedics got to the scene before you got there?
Nothing official, not on my paperwork that I have. I just have the times that I got there, ma'am.
Yes. But based on the paperwork that you do have, you know that you didn't get there until about 8:29 or 8:30.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you will, you still have the report in your hand.
Yes, ma'am, I
correct?
do.
Okay. Of which you authored this particular report?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? Okay. If you would please go to, I believe it would be the 3rd page. See where it says time of assessment?
Can you show me?
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're talking about.
You see time of assessment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that would be 8:30.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that means that would have been, that would have been the time that you assessed Jessica, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you would go down just a bit, you see where it says chest?
Yes, ma'am.
What does it say after that?
It says clear breath sounds left, clear breath sounds right.
Okay. And if you would flip to the next page after that, would be a summary of events, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Pretty much a narrative of what you thought took place.
Yes, ma'am.
On the assessment portion, I'm going to try to get you to that point.
Yes, ma'am.
You see where it says patient attempted to answer questions? Kind of 1, 2, 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you would start reading right where it says patient attempted to answer questions.
Patient attempts to answer questions, unable to understand some answers due to probable burns of vocal cords.
Keep going.
Keep going. EMS was able to obtain patient's name and that she was set on fire by another person named, quote, Eric, unquote, multiple times. Unable to obtain any other information reliably due
Slow
to
down just a little bit.
unable to obtain any other information reliably due to patient having a difficult time speaking. Keep going. Patient repeatedly complained of being cold. She had constant movement and tremors.
Okay. And if you will, just skip just a little bit, 2 sentences down. Airway was being maintained. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, start there.
Airway was being maintained by the patient without assistance. Respirations were elevated but adequate, not labored. Breath sounds were clear and equal bilaterally.
So at that point, she was able to communicate to
Yes,
some
ma'am.
degree where you could understand her.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so I believe your testimony was something said Eric or Derek is what you thought she said?
Yes, ma'am.
It was really just Eric, wasn't it?
Yeah, it could have been. It was Eric, or like I said, it was garbled. She could have said Derek, and it sounded Eric. It was
Okay.
something to that effect.
Well, I guess my question is, you didn't indicate that it was Derek in
No,
any
ma'am.
way in your report?
No.
Okay. And you did this, I would say, right about the time that the incident was on December 6th on that Saturday.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
would have done it close to the time at least.
I think this one, I did it that night.
Actually, go to the last page.
Last page. Yes, ma'am.
It was the same night, wasn't it?
Just the signature, just the page you're referring to?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
You
Yeah.
see the date?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the date on there?
December 6th, 2014.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
tenure the witness.
Redirect.
Just briefly, Your Honor. The sounds that you were hearing and that you indicate were clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, those were done by stethoscope, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And those were internally in the lungs, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm listening for.
And you can't say whether or not her tongue was swollen or were her lips burned?
They just said soot. I'd hate to guess at this point if they were burned or not. I know her airway was not swollen shut like a typical burn victim, a lot of them have. That's what I meant by she was maintaining her own airway. It was not swollen. She was able to.
And if it had been swollen shut, what kind of airway would you attempt to get in?
We attempted to intubate her, endotracheal intubation.
And the sounds, though, that Ms. Palmer just asked you about were in the lung area that appeared to be clear at this point in time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you expect those, due to her condition, to get worse?
Yes, sir. Honestly, I would. I would expect swelling and edema to start in eventually, and she would start having other than clear breath sounds, yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor. He may be finally excused.
Oh, sorry, you're fine. Excuse you. Are free to remain in the courtroom if you'd like. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, state calls Darrell House.
solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give in law in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
What is your, I'm sorry. What is your name?
Darrell House.
Daryl, speak in that microphone for me. Well, you put it on down to the other.
Who, just right here?
Put it on down to the. There you go. Where are you employed?
Panola County Sheriff's Department.
And are you a deputy there?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been with Panola County?
4.5 years.
And where were you before Panola?
Sarge PD.
Okay. Were you with the Sheriff's Department or working the evening of December the 6th of 2014?
Yes, sir.
And were you dispatched to an area on Heron Road?
Yes, sir.
And what was the nature of the call that you received?
It was a vehicle fire and it was a person that was set on fire.
Oh, you need to speak up because these folks all the way back over here got to hear you. You're soft. I known you a long time and you're soft spoken until you getting on somebody, right? All right. So the nature of your call was a car on fire and that somebody had been burned. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And where were you when you got the call? Do you remember?
I was in Batesville.
And did you in fact respond?
Yes, sir.
And what did you find upon your arrival on Heron Road?
Well, when I got there, the ambulance and EMTs, they was all there. And when I got there, like I said, she was already in the ambulance. And Daniel Cole said they was finna transport her down to the church before she can be airlifted out.
So you actually made the scene on top of the hill where the car was?
Yes, sir.
All right, tell the jury how the scene was when you got there.
Well, when I got there, it was a vehicle that was pulled off the side of the road close to a green fence. And it was the EMT, they was still putting out, it was smoking. And,
Okay. And were there a lot of vehicles there when you got there?
it was the fire department, the ambulance, that's all was there when I made it there.
Were there some personal vehicles there that belonged to the firefighters?
Yes, sir.
And is Heron Lane, once you get out of Cortland, it is a fairly narrow road?
It is.
Okay. And were cars parked on either side of the road as you were going up?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. When you got up to where the fire was, did you close, where did you park?
I parked kind of almost behind the ambulance, kind of off to the side.
And what did you observe once you got, besides the car you just testified to, what else did you observe at the scene?
They said like I said, the vehicle was on fire. They was putting it out. That's what I observed.
All right, what about Miss Chambers? Did you see Jessica?
No, sir, I didn't see her. Not up on the, when I made it to the scene, I didn't see her because they hadn't put her in the ambulance.
All right, at any point did you get in the ambulance?
Yes, sir.
Was it on the hill or was it down the hill at the landing zone?
Is at the landing zone?
Okay. So when you get, if I understand your testimony correctly, you pull up, you see the car on fire, and you're advised that Jessica's in the ambulance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you talk to anybody at the scene at that point trying to figure out what happened?
Daniel Cole stated to me that it was a female that had got burned, and they was finna transport her to the landing zone down there.
All right. And what was your thought process at the time? Were you thinking that you may have a crime scene, or was a crime been committed, or what was your main duty at that time?
I was just trying to know. I didn't know it was gonna be a crime scene. I was just trying to find out, what had happened.
Okay. And did you assist them with transporting her back down to the landing zone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, in other words, by assist, did you drive your car ahead of the ambulance down to the landing zone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And once you got to the landing zone, what did you do?
When I got there, I went inside the ambulance. I started taking photos of it, and I asked her some questions. What happened? Who did this to you?
And did she respond?
Yes, sir.
And did you know Jessica?
No, sir, I didn't know her.
Did you know her dad?
Yes, sir, I knew her dad.
And where did her dad work at the time?
Nolan County Sheriff's Department.
And what was Ben's responsibility with the Sheriff's Department?
Mechanic.
I want you to look at what's been previously marked as exhibit number 5. Do you recognize this right here?
Yes, sir.
And is that what you observed
Yes,
of
sir.
Jessica in the back of the ambulance that night?
Yes, sir.
When you got in the ambulance and you asked her what was going on, or who did this to you, did she respond?
Yes, sir.
And what did you hear?
She said, I asked her who did this to you, and she said, Eric.
Were other people in the ambulance with you?
It was the medics in there, the EMTs, they was in there.
Was Daniel in there?
No, sir, he wasn't in there.
Okay. Eventually, did Chuck Tucker come in with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Chuck's a deputy with the Sheriff's Department too.
Yes, sir.
Was Chuck standing with you when you were asking the question, who did this to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Chuck heard her say, or should have heard her say, Eric as well, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Turn to the witness, Your Honor.
Cross?
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right.
Good. Tell me what P10 means.
That's my call number, Panola 10.
Okay. And so if you were to do a report or anything of that nature, it would have P10 on it,
It should have P10 and my name out beside it.
right beside it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes. You said that you had to travel a little bit. Well, actually, what you said was that you came from Batesville.
Yes, ma'am, I was in base at the time.
Okay. And Jessica, Miss Jessica was already in the ambulance when you got there.
Yes, ma'am.
So it was really about 8:30 or so, at least, before you got there.
Yes, ma'am.
It takes a little bit of time to travel from Batesville to Cortland, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You got into the ambulance, correct, and spoke to Miss Jessica.
Yes, ma'am.
And at that point, she was able to state to you that Eric had done this to her.
Yes, ma'am, that's what she said.
Yes. I attended the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect?
No, sir. He may be finally excused.
All right, officer, you're finally excused. You may return to duty or stay in the courtroom, whatever your boss tells you to do. You may call your next witness.
Called Chuck Tucker.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in all of this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Arson?
What is your name?
Chuck Tucker,
And Chuck, where are you employed?
Panola County Sheriff's Department,
And how long have you been there?
12 years.
And were you on duty on the night of December the 6th of 2014?
I was.
And did you receive a call to go to Heron Road in Cortland?
Yes.
And what was the nature of the call?
Car fire and a female that had been burned.
Do you remember where you were when you got the call?
I was at Coles Point.
Okay. The jury's from Pike County. They're not real sure where Coles Point is. Sardis Lake is actually about 6 to 10 miles from here, depending on where you go. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and it's northeast of here.
yes.
All right, is Coles Point at Sardis Lake?
It's on the east side of, it's off of Blackjack Road.
Okay. And it's in the lake area, is that
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay.
almost in Lafayette County.
Okay. Which is the next county.
Next
Oxford-
county over,
The county
yes.
Oxford's in next door.
Yes,
All right. So did you go drive directly to the scene?
yes.
Okay. Do you remember what time or how long it took you to get there?
I don't.
Okay. When you got there, where did you go?
Well, I went to the scene, and as I was pulling up, the ambulance was pulling off, and Deputy House was pulling off following the ambulance. And I pulled up, and I was on the phone with Major Thompson, and he told me to go to the landing zone and see if I could get any information. So I turned around and followed the ambulance and stuff down.
While you were en route, did you get any more details about what was going on?
I don't remember. I talked to Detective Dixon and Major Barry Thompson both while I was on the way to the scene.
Okay. Did you learn who it was before you got there?
Well, just as I got there, I believe is when Barry told me who it was.
Okay. And Barry being Major Thompson?
Major Thompson,
Okay.
yes.
Now, who is Edward Dixon? They hadn't been introduced to Edward yet.
He's the lieutenant over the detective division.
Okay. And what were you talking to them about?
Well, they had called me about the call, and I told them I didn't know I wasn't there yet. They was trying to get information themselves, but they had received calls from dispatch and everything,
Okay.
so.
So when you got there, Jessica, which you didn't know was Jessica at the time, but Jessica was being transported from the hill down to the landing zone.
Yes,
Okay. Where did you go?
I went down to the landing zone then.
Okay. And when you got there, what did you do?
I got inside the ambulance.
Okay. And did you know who it was at that point?
Yes, I
And
did.
did you know Jessica?
Yes, I did.
And did you know Ben, her dad?
Yes.
And how long had you known Jessica?
Since she was a baby.
Okay. How did this affect you when you got in there, Chuck?
I mean, it was nerve-wracking to see somebody you knew that was burnt like that.
And describe for the jury what you saw of her body.
I mean, she had skin hanging all over, and her face and hair was singed, and I mean, it was bad.
You ever seen anything like that before?
No, not while they're still alive.
And did you begin to talk to Jessica?
Yes, I did.
And what did you ask her?
I asked her who did this, and she said Eric.
Okay. Describe for the jury how loud or low her voice was.
Well, she was real mumbled and very low, and she couldn't say, a whole lot, but, I mean, she told me that, and I asked her, Eric who, and she said she didn't know.
Okay.
And I had asked her if she knew who I was, and she told me yes.
Okay. And did you ask her any other questions?
Well, I had got out of the ambulance because the sheriff had called my phone and talked to the sheriff for a minute. And then the sheriff told me to find out if he was black or white. So I got back in the ambulance and asked her if he was black or white, and she said black.
Okay.
The only other thing she was saying was that she was cold.
Okay. And at this point, once you got this basic information, did you get out of the
I
ambulance?
did.
Okay. And were you there when the air evac people arrived?
Yes, me and the sheriff were standing outside when they got there.
When you said you called the sheriff on the phone, was he en route?
Well, he had called me while I was in the ambulance the first time. That's the reason I stepped out of the ambulance, to answer the phone, talk to the sheriff. And then when I got out, the sheriff was already there.
Okay, so he was en route.
He
the
was en
first time.
route, yes.
Okay. Tender the witness, Your Honor.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Deputy Tucker.
Good evening.
You think that you got to the scene a little bit after 20:30?
I'm not sure what time it was. That was 3 years ago.
was, okay. Your Honor, may I just approach the witness?
You may.
Is that your report?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you see the time at the top of it?
Yes,
Okay.
approximately 20:30.
Okay. That refreshes your recollection as to the time that you got there?
Well, that's what it says. I mean,
Yes. Okay. And you completed it?
yes,
Okay. You stated that you also went to the landing zone?
yes.
Okay. How long do you think it took you to get from, let's say, if this is about 8:30 on the scene to the landing zone?
2 minutes.
Okay. And at that point, you got into the ambulance with Miss Jessica?
Yes,
Okay. And the information that you were able to ascertain was that the person who had done this to her was named Eric, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And also the person was black?
yes,
And that she was cold?
yes,
And she knew who you were, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I tended the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No, sir, and he may be filing excuse.
All right, officer, you can be fine excused. Thank you, sir. Call your next witness.
Edward Dixon.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
What is your name?
Edward Dixon,
And Edward, where are you employed?
Panola County Sheriff's Department,
And Edward, how long have you been there?
22 and a half years.
And what position do you hold with the Sheriff's Department now?
I'm Lieutenant of Investigations,
And how long have you been Lieutenant over Investigations?
4 years.
So back on December the 6th of 2014, were you head of investigations?
Yes, sir, I was.
And on that evening, did you receive a call, and I believe it was Saturday night, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a call concerning a car fire and a young lady that had been burned?
Yes, sir, I did.
And do you remember where you were when you got the call?
Yes, sir, I was at home.
And what did they tell you when you first got the call?
I initially got the call, they said that there was a car fire in Cortland. And they think there was a young lady that had been burned due to the course of the car fire.
And did you call your investigators out?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and did you actually respond to the scene yourself?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and who else was there with you?
In regards to officers or?
Your investigator.
Jimmy Shannon, he was there on the scene also.
Okay, I believe Jimmy lives near Cortland, is that correct?
Yes, sir, he does.
Okay. Edward, describe for the jury, please, what you observed upon your arrival at the scene.
When I arrived on the scene, I think the firemen had pretty much had put the fire out. Once I saw that, I went ahead and got my crime scene tape out and secured the area once I got there.
Okay, and describe what you were looking at when you got there.
When I arrived on the scene, there was a vehicle. I wasn't sure the color of the vehicle because it was completely burned. It was kind of pulled up, kind of wedged in between a couple of trees, maybe, not trees, but there was a tree on the side and one in front of the vehicle. It was completely burned.
Now, Edward, as a trained investigator, one of the first things you do is to make a walkthrough of your area, is that correct?
Make a walk through the area and secure the area as best you can.
Okay. And during your walkthrough, what are you actually looking for during your initial walkthrough?
Anything that might be evidence or that might, when you get there, you don't know what's really going on. You treat all areas like a crime scene. So then you secure the area and you start marking anything that might be related to this particular crime.
Okay. And did you notice anything else there other than the car?
I noticed the car, I noticed items that were on the ground, cigarette lighters, cell phone, beer cans, stuff like that.
Okay. And did you begin to photograph some of the things that you were observing?
Yes, sir, I did.
And also, how do you, when you see a piece of what you think may be evidence laying on the ground, how do you go about marking it so that you can identify it later?
We have markers in our units from 1 to 100, and your first item that you mark is going to be number 1. And you continue going until you feel like you've got all the evidence marked.
And are there like little cones with numbers on them?
There are
Or little markers with cones on them?
Yes, sir.
And did you do that in this particular case?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. All right, let's go and talk about the vehicle for a minute. Did you go up close to the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you actually take up-close photographs of the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Did you also notice, you just talked about a cell phone. Where did you observe the cell phone?
The cell phone was maybe 2.5 feet, maybe, from the driver's side door on the ground.
And was there any other parts of cell phones located around?
There was the back of the cell phone and the cell phone itself.
And you mentioned a lighter a minute ago, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think there was 2 lighters, one orange, and I have to look at my evidence to see what color the other one might have been.
And did you actually photograph those?
I did mark those and photograph those also.
Edward, I'd like for you to look at this board, please. And look at this board for me real quick and tell me if you can identify what's on this board.
I see the burned vehicle. Number 2 is going to be your cell phone. It would have been the LG cell phone. Number 4, it's going to be a lighter. Number 3 is going to be the back of the cell phone, and number 5 is also another lighter.
And that's what you just described for the jury that you observed at the scene, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I would offer this as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Any objections from counsel? All right, there being no objection, will be marked and admitted. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I want you to understand that all these items that are admitted into evidence, you will be allowed at the proper time to take those back into the jury room with you. I didn't want you to think you had to memorize any particular picture or anything like that. You will actually be allowed to take it with you into the jury room when you commence your deliberations.
Your Honor, could I get Investigator Dixon to come down, Lieutenant Dixon to come down and
Yes, you may. Officer, you can stand down and counsel's request.
All right, Edward, describe in the top 3 pictures for the jury what they are looking at in those photographs.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Can I adjust my position so that I can...
You may.
Can I approach this area, Your Honor?
Yes, sir. Why don't you stand right over there beside my court administrator, and I think that'll be a good place for you right there.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can you see there?
I can.
All right, thank you.
Edward, describe for the jury, please, what we're looking at in the top 3 pictures.
This is the burned vehicle once I arrived on the scene. This is the driver's side door where you just got just a little space for the driver to get out on this side of the door. This is also the driver's side door. It was just partially open when I arrived on the scene. This is going to be the rear passenger side of the vehicle.
All right, there's something noticeable in this middle picture here. What is this right here?
That's a pine tree, or oak tree, or something of that nature.
And it appears to be relatively close to the door.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And then what is on the other side of this vehicle, on the passenger driver's side, or the passenger front and passenger back?
It's kind of like a wooded area. It had trees and bushes on the passenger side.
Was there anything else over there?
I would have to reflect back to the picture. I can't
Was there a
remember.
fence over there?
There could be a fence line there.
Okay. All right. Now, when you go, you described a minute ago that the phone, which I assume is depicted right here, number 2.
That's correct.
And then number 3 is the back of the phone that you just described.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. Where in relation to this middle picture here was the phone?
It's going to be maybe 2.5 maybe feet from the driver's side door here.
Was it near that tree?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And then the back of the phone, which is depicted as number 3, where in this area was
It's
it
going to
located?
be not much further from the phone itself. Like I said, it's maybe 2.5, 3 feet from the vehicle, and then just maybe another foot outside from the phone.
And so these two pieces, are they very close to each other?
Yes, sir, they are.
All right, and this appears here to be the back that fits here on the phone, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was not attached to the phone?
No, sir, it wasn't.
Now, the lighters that you indicated in 4 and 5, what proximity were they into the car?
They was pretty close to the vehicle. One lighter was just kind of outside the vehicle, and the other one was maybe a few feet away. You can see where it was it's like it's been there for a while. We still collected anyway because we weren't sure if it had anything to do with the crime scene.
Edward, during the course of the investigation, were you able to determine who that phone belonged to?
It was near the area. I felt like it belongs to the victim.
Okay, and were you able later in
Yes,
this
sir.
investigation?
Yes, sir, I was.
So that night, did you know whether that phone belonged to Jessica or not?
No, sir, I didn't.
But it's subsequent to that, you did learn that that was Jessica's phone.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Now, as you expanded out from the crime scene, and just so the jury will understand, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 1 is the vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as you expanded out from the vehicle, did you find anything else that was of particular to you that you noticed?
Found some burnt clothing.
Okay, and where was that?
It was at the rear of the vehicle, maybe 2 or 3 feet. There was like a little creek where water was running through, and some of the clothing were in that water and also in the grass area.
Okay. Now describe once again for the jury, Heron Road runs east and west, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the area where you found the car, how would you have been able to drive that car up in there?
Well, it was kind of like a little slope, so you would have to kind of give it a little speed to get it wedged together the way it was.
All right. Was there a drive behind the trunk of the car that led up to a gate?
That's a tree farm area, so yes, there's a drive that led up to the gate.
Okay, and the gate was behind the trunk of the car, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you would have to go up the drive, turn left,
And then go up.
and then go up the incline you described to get it in between that tree and the fence?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And the location where you found the burned clothing, was that in the drive leading up to the gate, or was it further west?
It was a drive more or less leading, it's kind of in the area of the gate.
Okay. And did you actually photograph that?
Yes, sir, I did.
Edward, I want to hand you a series, I believe it is 5 photographs, and ask you to take a look at that, please, and tell me if you recognize that.
Yes, sir, I do.
And what are those, please?
It's a burnt clothing.
Your Honor, I would offer these as, just make it simple, one collective exhibit, if that's okay with defense.
Any objection, Mr. Peterson? All right, be so marked and admitted.
And Edward, did you in fact collect that clothing?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you place it, where did you place it into?
It was placed in a paper bag at the time.
And do you mark that bag, or was it done at your direction?
Yes, sir.
Edward, I believe. Edward, I know you don't have gloves, we won't take anything out of here, but I would ask you to look at the bag and tell me if you recognize what this is.
That's an evidence bag.
Okay, does that belong to y'all?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay, and it's got, what number does it have on it?
Number 6.
And is that reflected by the number 6 in your markers?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is this the piece of clothing that y'all recovered that's reflected in photograph number 6?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would offer this as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Mr. Peterson, any objection?
None, Your Honor.
All right, it'll be marked and admitted. You want her to mark the bag, or you want her to mark the can?
The can, because we're going to use the trade tip.
All right.
Yeah, well, we do have 7, 8, 9, and 10, but for the significance of this trial, 6 is the one that is being entered. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was 16, Kathy? Everything else was recovered. The only other thing that was covered at the scene, besides what's been depicted in this exhibit here and then the clothing, was there anything else recovered from the scene?
We recovered beer cans that didn't have anything to do with the case. I would have to look at the report to tell you what all was recovered that didn't have anything to do with the case.
Well, I guess Herring Road's like any old country road in Mississippi. You drive down the road, you're gonna have beer cans and Coke cans and everything else laying on the side of the road.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
safe to say?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
The next, did you, or were you in contact with Barry Thompson?
Yes, sir, he's my major of investigations. Yes, sir.
And were you advising him of what you found and et cetera at the scene?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And did you make arrangements to have the vehicle removed from the scene?
I didn't make arrangements. I think Major Thompson had made arrangements.
And was the vehicle in fact removed from the scene?
Yes, sir, it was.
And where was it taken?
It was taken to the Pinole County Sheriff's Department and stored away in the garage at the Sheriff's Department.
And were photographs taken of it the next day in the daylight?
Yes, sir, there were.
Okay. Now, Edward, as far as you processing the scene, you had some help. You said Jimmy Shannon, right?
Basically, Jimmy Shannon just helped me with the crime scene tape. Normally, when you're trying to rope off a crime scene, you go out further than the crime it is itself. You can always come in, but once you get started, it's a little bit hard to go out.
So you want to go as far out as you think you may have something and then work your way in?
Work my way in, yes, sir.
Okay, is that what you did here?
Yes, sir.
And once you recovered, all right, let me back up a minute. You actually observed first, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Then you mark.
Once I roped off my crime scene area, then I observed and then I started marking. And Brent Crawford also helped. He just kind of kept the notes on what number was what.
And then once you mark, you then photograph, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then finally you recover.
Yes, sir.
And those are the principles that you use at each and every crime scene.
Yes, sir.
And you did that in this particular case?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. So beyond what the jury sees here on this board, what's depicted in those photographs and what's in that evidence can right there, was anything else found of significance at the crime scene?
To my knowledge, not that I can remember now. No, sir.
Okay. And then once you finished everything as far as your photographs, recovery, the vehicle was in fact removed?
Yes, sir, it was.
Now, did you have occasion to see the vehicle the next day in the back of y'all's sheriff's department?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and were photographs taken of the vehicle that day?
Yes, sir, they were.
Okay, and I would like you to look at these 6 photographs and tell me if you recognize them.
I recognize those, but I didn't take those photos.
I understand that, but do you recognize those?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what are these photographs of?
That's going to be the photographs of the vehicle that was burned the night before.
Okay, and that's one that you processed the night before, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. As I understand, you had actually worked pretty late in the night and had gone home and got some rest when these photos were taken.
Actually, I didn't go home. I stayed at the office.
Okay. And you actually recognize each of these photos from what you observed in the back parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would offer this as an exhibit of this witness's testimony.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Being no objection, will be marked and admitted. 17.
Your Honor, may I ask Officer Dixon to come down off stand?
You may. Yes, sir.
All right, Edward, help me here. What are we looking at in the top left photograph up here?
Looking at the front of the vehicle,
Okay, and then,
it's going to be the rear.
okay. Now, what part, if we're looking at this in the picture in the top right up here, which part of this vehicle was up against the tree?
It's going to be your driver's side.
Okay. And then if we look at photograph number 3, show the jury the area that you're talking about was next to the tree.
This driver's side was next to the tree.
And then as we look at picture number 4, is this the area of the vehicle that was up against the fence that night?
That's going to be close to your fence line.
Okay. And this would be the
Passenger side, yes.
All right, and then what are actually photographs number 5 and 6?
5 and 6 is just another view of the vehicle, still your driver's side and your passenger side.
Okay. Now, did you also, when you went out and looked at the vehicle, were you able to observe the interior of the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. Did you look at it that night on the scene?
I did.
And did you look at it later on the next day?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. I would ask you to look at these series of photographs and tell me if you can recognize them.
This is still your driver's side where the driver would sit, your passenger side where the seat is more or less kind of reclined. It's in a reclined position. This is also still the passenger side seat where it's in a reclined position also. This is going to be your driver's side.
Okay. So let's go up here to photograph number 1. It appears this one is taken basically from a higher angle up looking down.
Yes, sir.
And what is this over here
That's going to be your driver's side.
and right here?
That's your passenger side.
If we go to photograph number 2, what does this appear to be here?
That appears to be your passenger side.
Okay. And you mentioned a moment ago that the passenger seat appeared to be reclined. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that reflected in this photograph?
Yes, sir, it does.
Is this a better photograph of it from the other side?
Yes, sir.
Taken from the passenger side.
That's correct.
All right, you have photograph number 3. What is that?
It's going to be the driver's side also. You can tell where the passenger side seat is reclining back a little bit more than the driver's side.
Okay, same here. What is picture number 4?
It's going to be also the this is your back seat area, your driver's side, and your passenger side.
And then what is this photograph up here finally on the bottom?
The back seat where your seat has been burned out completely, your passenger seat which is reclined.
All right, this appears to be taken from the back seat. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the passenger seat is all the way back?
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I would offer this as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Mr. Peterson? All right, no objection will be marked and admitted.
That 18 gap. Edward, as far as processing the scene and getting the photographs handled, that was pretty much your extent in this, as far as this investigation is concerned. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Tend to the witness.
Mr. Peterson, I'm going to take our afternoon recess now, sir, and we will put the jury in recess to the jury room, and I'll send for you as soon as we're ready. All right, about 15, 20 minutes, okay? Courtroom will remain in order till the jury's excused. You can stand down. Just remember that you're still on the witness stand and do not discuss your testimony with anyone.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
So thank you. All right, we'll be in recess. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have followed my instructions, correct? All right. You may cross-examine.
Good afternoon, Detective Dixon.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. You actually, and I have in my notes, if I misstate some of your earlier testimony, Detective, please correct me.
Yes, sir, I will.
You have been a police officer or in law enforcement for 22 and a half years?
Yes, sir.
And for the past 4 years, where have you been employed?
Panola County Sheriff's Department.
And in your capacity with the Panola County Sheriff's Department, what is do you actually have a job title?
Lieutenant of Investigations.
Okay. And you've held that position for the
4
past 4
years.
years. Now, prior to that, were you with the Panola County Sheriff's Department?
I've been at the Panola County Sheriff's Department my whole 22 and a half years.
Okay. Now, Detective Dixon, I believe you testified that you were at home when you received a call concerning the car fire and a possible burned person.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And where do you live?
I live in Sardis.
Sardis. And how far is that from where we are now?
From
Batesville.
I would have to drive and tell you that I couldn't give you the estimated mileage. I don't know.
Okay. How long does it take you to drive to work every morning?
I never clock myself going to work.
Okay. Do you have to be at work at a certain time?
No, sir, as an investigator, I can go 10-8 from my residence because there are things that I might have to take care of before I get to the office. So I
Okay.
don't actually have to go to the office when I go 10-8.
Now, do you recall who called you?
Dispatch did.
Okay, dispatch called you at home, and at that point, you left your home and went out to the scene.
Yes, sir, I did.
And I believe you indicated that there was a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Shannon who assisted you.
One of my investigators, yes, sir.
Okay. Was he the only investigator that assisted you on this particular occasion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did Mr. Shannon meet you there, or did you all ride together, or
He was there when I arrived.
he was there when you arrived? And I believe you indicated that when you arrived at the location, you were particularly concerned with securing the crime scene.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Tell the jury how you go about securing a crime scene.
Basically, you get your crime scene tape, remove it from the vehicle. If there's anybody in the area, you go ahead and ask them to just kind of step back. And once you secure that crime scene, then you don't allow anybody to go in that crime scene other than the person, myself, and whoever else I asked to assist me in gathering evidence.
Okay. So when you secured the crime scene, does that involve marking it off with that
Crime scene tape, yes, sir. it
that
does.
yellow tape we're accustomed to seeing on TV?
Yes, sir, that's it.
Said crime scene or police line do not cross?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, tell me and explain for the jury, what area did you consider to be the crime scene on this particular occasion?
Anything within, I do an outside perimeter. I try to do at least 5 feet from where I was when I arrived, depending on the nature of the call.
On this particular occasion, what did you consider to be the crime scene?
My crime scene actually was that burnt vehicle,
Okay.
and anything on the outskirts of that burnt vehicle would be considered a crime scene.
Okay. Did this make sense? Did you set up a perimeter around the vehicle?
I put crime scene around the vehicle.
Okay.
That was my perimeter.
Let me ask you this then. There was a gate or a fence there. Do you recall that, where the car was sitting?
On the passenger side, yes, sir.
Okay. Did your crime scene extend to the other side of that fence?
Not the other side, just between the vehicle and the fence itself.
So would it be fair to say that in this particular occasion, your crime scene consisted of the area from the vehicle back out to Heron Road?
Back out to Heron Road, not all the way to Heron Road. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, the fence, the rear of the vehicle, like I said, about 5 feet. The rear of the vehicle, if not further. The passenger side, maybe about 5 feet. I can only go so far because of the first responder vehicles that were there.
Certainly. Now, and I understand that when we're talking about the fence, we're talking about the vehicle being parked parallel to that fence. Fair to say that?
More or less, yes, sir.
Okay, so the fence would have, how much area was located between the actual vehicle and the fence?
About 3.5, 4 feet.
Okay, did you walk around in this area?
I did, yes, sir, I did.
So, and I'm just trying to ascertain, for purposes of your crime scene, you didn't actually go on the other side of that fence, did you?
I didn't, no, sir.
Did one of your investigators?
You have to check with them, sir. I said I didn't go. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Dixon, they were under your direction on this particular evening.
That's correct.
Did you direct any of your investigators to investigate the area on the other
No,
side of the
sir,
fence?
I did not.
Did you, subsequent to the, I guess, December 6th, maybe December 7th, did you instruct any of your investigators to investigate the area on the other side of the fence at a subsequent date?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay. Now, so you marked off the area with crime scene tape, and then you began to, I believe you indicated that your protocol is to observe, mark, and then take photos.
Observe, mark, take photos, then start collecting your evidence.
Right, and collecting the evidence.
Or whatever you think might be evidence.
Certainly. Now, you indicated that you collected several items, and did you actually authored a report on this particular occasion?
I did what now?
You authored a report, did you not?
I did write a report, yes, sir, I
Okay.
did.
When did you write that report?
I wrote the report a few days after the incident.
Okay. May I approach you?
You may.
Mr. Dixon, would you take a look at that report? Is that the report you authored?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that everything in this report is accurate to the best of your recollection? Please review it if you need to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As you review it, you don't see anything that you could have possibly left out of this report, do you?
That's possible, but I don't see anything that I could have possibly left out.
Fair enough. Now, Mr. Dixon, you indicated that on the report, it says among the items collected was an LG cell phone and cover.
Yes, sir.
And you collected the burned clothing, and I believe you've testified to that.
Yes, sir.
And you collected 2 lighters, beer cans, and a cigarette butt.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Would there have been any other items collected at the scene?
There might have been, but I can only testify to what's on the list there.
Certainly. Now, if there were other items collected at the scene, what would have happened to them?
They would be turned in and marked.
They would be turned in and marked. And, may I approach you?
You may.
Part of that process, Mr. Dixon, is, take a look at this and make sure. Mr. Dixon, for example, this can, which has been marked as Exhibit 16.
Yes, sir.
That would have been some of the items that you collected.
Yes, sir.
And there's a bag inside that we've shown the jury previously. If you collected some items, you would have similarly placed those in bags and marked them and signed off on them, correct?
Yes, sir.
So any items that you collected would have been cataloged in that.
Any items that I collected, yes.
Right. Now, did Mr. Shannon collect any items?
No, sir.
Okay. So all of the items that would have been collected under your direction would have been collected on this particular evening?
Unless someone went out and, like I said, it was dark. Okay. So we only had so much light.
Sir, and my question, Mr. Dixon, was any items that would have been collected under your direction would have been cataloged in that manner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm not asking you to testify as to what may have happened later.
Okay.
But on this particular occasion, they would have been cataloged in that manner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you indicated that there were some items that were out at the scene that you that didn't have anything to do with the case. Did I understand that testimony correctly?
Yes, sir, you did.
Talk to the jury about how you actually go about excluding items as you're collecting items at a crime scene. How do you go about excluding items? I mean, determining that they have nothing to do with what you're investigating.
The cigarette lighters, you know they didn't have anything to do with it because they were extremely rusty. Anytime you flick a lighter, it's got a little roll on it. That lighter's been there for quite some time. The beer can itself, you can look at it and tell it had been there for quite some time also. So it was also rusty. That wouldn't have had anything to do with it.
Okay. So if I understand your testimony, Mr. Dixon, and on this particular item, you referred to, on this particular occasion, you referred to the lighters and the beer can.
Yes, sir.
But my question was, and let me try and summarize what you said. You actually take the items when you're collecting them?
That's correct.
And you make a visual determination?
Not visual, no, sir.
Okay.
I collect the items and I mark them. Then when we return back to the station, then we do a process of elimination on if this had anything to do with the crime, how long it's been here. You can look at it and see if it's rusty. Well, it's been here for a while.
Okay. So the items that would have been collected at the scenes that you excluded would have been taken back to the station?
Yes, sir.
And then there's a process that you complete while you're at the station?
Yes, sir.
To exclude them?
Yes, sir.
Other than observing the condition of those items, is there a process that you actually go through to exclude those items?
I just explained to you the process that I go through to exclude the items.
Well, understand, when I said visually, you indicated that it was more than visual. So my question, I guess, would go to what more than visual is involved in that process?
That's basically it as far as visual.
So it would be. You look at items and from a visual inspection, you determine whether or not they have something to do with that crime.
Well, it's pretty much common sense. You can look at the lighter and tell if it's rusty, it's been there for a while, and the crime just happened just 2 or 3 hours ago. Yes, sir.
Well, Mr. Dixon, what I'm trying to get at, and I'm trying to convey this information to the
understand.
jury, and I'm not trying to be, I'm trying to use my common sense, but I want it conveyed in a manner that they will understand it. But you look at it from a visual perspective, and then you determine, once you've taken those items back to the station, whether they have anything to do with it.
Certain items, yes, sir, we do.
Okay. What about other items?
You send them off to the crime lab and let them make that decision.
How do you make the determination which items are sent to the crime lab and which items
Just
can be
like that
excluded?
rusty lighter. That lighter was rusty, wouldn't send it to the crime lab.
Mr. Dixon, she's trying to take down what we're saying.
I understand.
If you would allow me to finish my question, I would endeavor not to interrupt you as well.
Okay.
Now, you send some items to the crime lab,
Yes.
and my question was, how do you go about determining which items are going to go to the crime lab and which items will be visually excluded from sending them to the crime lab, if that makes sense?
May I respond?
Certainly.
Okay, back to the lighters. Once I got back to the station, I knew what was bagged up. After viewing that lighter, I saw that lighter when I placed it in the bag. I knew it was a rusted lighter. I still removed it from the crime scene area. Once I returned to the station, I knew that this lighter had nothing to do with the crime. It was extremely rusty lighter. It could have been there for at least a week or more. If it was a new lighter, it would probably still work.
You also extracted a cigarette butt from the crime scene, according to this report.
Yes, sir. Later determined it was a firefighter that threw his cigarette out at the crime scene.
How'd you make that determination?
Because I saw one of the guys smoking and I asked who put this, well, the cigarette butt was still smoking a little bit, and I asked who threw a cigarette down on the ground, and one of the firefighters told me that he did.
Okay.
I can't remember his name or who it was, but he did tell me.
Now, while you were out at the crime scene, you actually had a good look at the vehicle to the extent possible in the light that you had.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you actually take a look at the inside of the vehicle?
I did, yes, sir.
Did you actually remove any items from the inside of the vehicle?
No, sir, I didn't remove anything from inside the vehicle.
Okay. Now, do you recall any items being inside the vehicle?
Everything was pretty much burned, so it was kind of hard to tell.
Okay. Do you recall whether or not there was a can of Freon in there?
No, sir, I don't recall.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dixon, you actually took a series of photos.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you testified about those earlier, but you made, and I'm just, for clarification, you indicated that your markings go from 1 to 100?
Yes, sir, they do.
And we're talking about those yellow cones that were in the photos?
Yes, sir.
Now, you took a photo of the cell phone,
Yes,
or
sir.
a cell phone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there was also, that phone was in two pieces. There was a back.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever do anything to determine whether or not the back actually went to that phone?
No, sir, I just collected it.
Okay, so you don't know if that was a back to that cell phone or not?
I can't swear to it.
Okay. When did you become aware that that phone belonged to Jessica Chambers?
I think we did a search warrant on that phone. You can't actually go into a person's phone without a search warrant or otherwise. And I could be wrong, but I think we did a search warrant. And then once it was determined then that that was her phone.
Okay. Now, I believe you testified earlier that you were up all night?
Yes, sir. A lot of the guys stayed at the station because of the nature of the case. So we just kind of just camped out in our office or where we just kind of take a break.
So you were in the station on into that Sunday, which, well,
Oh, yes,
December
sir.
the 7th.
Yes, sir.
What time did you leave the station that day?
Sir, I don't remember.
Okay. Now, the pictures that were taken at the station,
Okay.
who actually took those photos?
I'm not sure. I didn't take them.
Okay. Did you witness them being taken?
No, sir, I didn't.
Do you know when they were actually taken?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. So, same question with the interior photos of the vehicle. Do you recall looking at those?
Yes, sir. We had several photos of which ones you're referring to.
The interior ones.
Okay. The ones that I took or ones someone else took?
May I approach you?
You may.
Detective Dixon, these photos.
Okay, I didn't take those.
Right. You testified to them earlier. This has formally been marked as Exhibit 18 to your, do you know when these photos were taken?
No, sir, I don't.
Do you know where they were? Can you tell from that background where the car was?
That's at the sheriff's department.
Now, this vehicle ended up at the sheriff's department.
Yes, sir.
When did it arrive there?
I'm not sure because I didn't follow the vehicle.
Okay. Did it arrive there the next day?
I'm not sure.
You don't know when the vehicle arrived
I
there?
was still at the crime scene, sir.
Do you know who moved the vehicle?
No, sir, you have to check your records. I don't know.
Sure, but I'm just asking you what you know, sir.
And I'm testifying to what I know.
Certainly. My question was, do you know who moved the vehicle?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. Now, did you actually see the vehicle at the sheriff's department the following day?
Yes, sir, I did.
That's the course indicted. May I approach you?
You may.
Detective Dixon, these are the photos that you actually took.
Yes, sir.
And you took these while they were at the crime scene, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Now, I believe you indicated that this is the driver's side door,
Yes, sir.
and that would be a tree, a sapling.
A sap or maple tree or whatever it is.
Sure.
Pine tree.
Did you actually take any measurements when you were there? At the
No,
scene?
sir, I did not.
Do you know how far that tree is from that door?
Just a guess, maybe 3-4 feet.
And it would appear that that door is cracked,
Yes, sir.
and it could open farther, couldn't it?
I would think so.
Certainly. Was that the case on the other side of the vehicle, if you recall?
The door wasn't open on the other side. To my knowledge, it wasn't open.
Certainly. Now, you indicated earlier that when you walked around the vehicle, there was about 3 feet,
3 or 4 feet.
3 or
yes,
4
sir.
feet on the opposite side of the vehicle.
That's correct.
In your opinion, would that be enough for that vehicle door to open?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. Now, in your report, you indicated that you spoke with Deputy Charles Tucker,
I did.
okay? Do you recall whether or not you spoke with any other paramedics, first responders while they're on the scene?
Oh, no, sir, I didn't.
Okay. Do you recall who was there at the scene when you arrived?
No, sir, I can't remember. There were several people there.
Certainly. But the only one that you recall speaking to would be Detective Tucker
And Lieutenant Tucker, yes, sir.
and Mr. Shannon, who was there.
He helped
assisting
me
you.
just do the crime scene tape, yes.
You don't recall speaking with anyone who may have indicated that Ms. Chambers may have came from the direction of the woods, do you?
I don't.
Okay. Do you recall speaking with Daniel Cole?
No, sir.
Attendant witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Edward, just so that everyone understands, what was your main purpose at the scene that night?
Gather evidence and secure the scene.
And as far as questioning people to find out what was going on, that was not your responsibility at that moment, is that correct?
No, sir, that was not my responsibility.
Were you asked to process the scene and collect the evidence at the scene?
I wasn't asked, that was my job. I knew to do that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you were asked to go to the scene and that was your purpose once you got there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Mr. Peterson asked you who moved the vehicle. Explain to the jury what a record rotation is.
Record rotation is 5 days out of a week, you might have Tuesday record service, you might have Hefner the next day. So you go down the line on what record service falls in line the next on-call rotation.
So
If that
basically,
makes sense to you.
yeah, basically, the records are out there, y'all have, they agree to do it, transport vehicles for a certain price, and they're in a rotation. So whoever was next in rotation would have been the one to come and get this vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Do you recall who that was?
No, sir.
Okay. But do you recall a record showing up and transporting the vehicle from the scene?
I do remember a record coming to the scene, but I didn't pay attention to the name of the record company.
And I believe you testified earlier that Major Thompson is the one that actually arranged for the record to come get the vehicle.
I would think so, yes, sir.
Okay. And then the vehicle was at the sheriff's department the next day.
Yes, sir.
and I believe you testified, I want to make sure I understood this right. I believe you testified that you actually went out and physically observed the vehicle the next day,
When we have more daylight, yes, sir.
on the 7th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And those photographs that I showed you accurately depict what you saw that next day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you are aware that some of the evidence, a determination was made at a later date, that some of the evidence that you collected would in fact be tested by the crime lab. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And were those pieces of evidence sent to the crime lab?
Yes, sir, they were.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm through with Detective Dixon. He may be fine the excuse.
All right, Detective, you're fine excuse, sir. You may return to duty, or you may stay in the courtroom, your choice.
Thank you, sir.
They call you next witness.
Jerry King.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give regarding this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Hale.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tell me your name, please.
Jerry King.
All right, Mr. King, I'm gonna need you to kind of sit up, speak in the microphone, because all these folks have to hear you, okay? Let's try it again, one more time. What's your name?
Jerry King.
All right, Mr. King, on December 6, 2014, where did you live?
124 Main Street in Cortland.
And were you aware, I'm sorry, on December 8th of 2014, were you still living at 124 Main Street of Cortland?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware of an event that had occurred down the road involving Jessica Chambers a couple days before?
Yes, sir.
And were you in fact, excuse me, what were you doing that particular afternoon?
I was strolling my daughter down the road.
How old's your daughter?
She's 4 now, so she was probably 1.
As you were strolling your daughter down the road, what road are we talking about?
Main Street
Cortland?
in Cortland, yes, sir.
Did you see anything laying off the side of the road on Main Street in Cortland on December 8, 2014?
Yes, sir. I happened to see a pink rope in a ditch that had something shiny on it.
And what did it end up, did you pick it up?
Yes, sir.
What did it end up being?
It happened to be some keys.
And at the time, who did you hand the keys to?
I had handed them to my daughter as I was strolling back to the house.
How far is your house from where you picked these keys up?
2 houses down.
So pretty close?
Yes, sir.
And when you arrived at home, who did you live with?
I lived with myself, but my girlfriend also stayed with me at the time.
And who was your girlfriend?
Mary Time.
Did Mary notice anything on those keys that...
Yes, sir. She had, after We had sat there for a minute. She had noticed the little symbol on it had Ben Chambers Auto on it.
And who is Ben Chambers?
Jessica's dad.
And did you know that Jessica was involved in the event a couple days before?
Yes, sir.
And so, what did that tell you?
We immediately called the sheriff department, and Tyler Mills had came out.
Do you know Tyler Mills personally from Cortland?
Yes, sir.
And did you contact Tyler?
Yes, sir.
And Tyler did in fact come to your residence?
Yes, sir.
Did you turn over the keys to Tyler Mills?
Yes, sir.
And did the sheriff department ultimately take DNA samples from you, your daughter, and your girlfriend?
Yes, sir.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to show you an item of evidence that's previously been marked for identification as item number 2. Is this the item that you retrieved off the side of Main Street?
Yes, sir.
And you referred to a tag on the keys. What tag are you talking about?
The Benz Auto Diesel in repair.
And what color is that tag?
Green.
And you knew Ben as who?
As her dad.
And are these the keys that you picked up and turned over to Tyler Mills?
Yes, sir.
Did Investigator Mills ask you where you found these keys?
Yes, sir. And he asked me where they were located, and we took them back, and I approximately showed him where I had picked them up at.
Approximately how far off the side of the road did you find the keys?
Maybe probably about 5 feet.
And did you actually place the keys back where you found them?
Almost. I mean, I can't say, it was in the exact spot, but it was close to it.
But again, how far is this from your house?
2 houses down.
Are you aware of the area on Heron Road where Jessica was burned?
I'm pretty familiar with it.
And you know where you found the keys?
Yes, sir.
How do you get from the area where Jessica was burned to the keys? Is it a direct route, or do you have to? Are there multiple ways to get there?
It's a straight shot. It's a straight shot from my house. It's just a straight shot.
And if you go from where Jessica was burned to the keys and keep walking, what do you run into?
My house.
And then past your house?
The fire station.
Is that downtown Cortland?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, attend to the witness.
Cross. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. King.
Hey there.
How are you today?
All right.
Mr. King, you are from the Cortland area, correct?
Yes, sir.
How long have you lived in the Cortland area?
Most of my life.
Now, at the time, well, back in December of 2014, you were actually living at 124 Main Street in Cortland.
Yes, sir.
How long had you lived at that address?
I'm gonna say about 4 years.
About 4 years?
Yeah, it's my grandmother's house.
Okay. And you lived there with who?
I was living there with my grandmother until she passed, and then it was me and my girlfriend. Can I say my baby mama?
You can say whatever you like, sir. I'm just asking the questions.
All right.
But that would be Miss Tyner?
Yes.
And you all, at the time, you all had a 4-year-old daughter?
Yeah, well, she's 4 now. She just turned 4.
Okay. So back in December of 2014,
She would have been 1.
she would have been 1. Okay. Now, as I understand it, Mr. King, you were actually walking your daughter down Main Street.
Yes, sir. Well, I was strolling her in a stroller.
She was in the stroller, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe you indicated that about 2 houses down,
Yes, sir.
you observed a pink rope
Yes, sir.
over in the.
It was in a ditch.
Now, what drew your attention to this pink rope?
It had something shiny on it.
Okay.
So, the rope was, kind of big. So, it had something shiny on it. So, with all that chaos and stuff that had happened, I was just curious. So I picked it up, and it happened to be in some keys. I didn't think nothing about it. So, I just picked it up and gave it to my daughter to play with, which I shouldn't have, but I did. And we went back to the house, like I said, and that's when she found out, she seen the symbol on it that said Ben Chambers Auto, and that's when we called the police.
She being Mary Tyner, your
Yes.
girlfriend.
Yes.
And so you referred to chaos. Did I understand you correctly? You were aware of the chaos that had been going on?
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming you're talking about the incident that happened with Miss Chambers, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, why did that prompt you to go and pick up this pink rope over in the ditch?
No, I just really couldn't tell you why. I just, it was just something that caught my eye.
Certainly. Let me ask you like this, Mr. King. When you were pushing your daughter in the stroller, and you looked over and saw this pink rope, did you think that had something to do with Jessica's?
Not at the time.
Okay. So, was it the shininess that got
Yes.
your attention?
Yes.
Did you think it was something valuable?
At first I did.
So
But because where I found it at was in front of somebody's house. It was in front of somebody's house, and they had a little. It was a little gully, a little ditch, and the house it was a house in front of the ditch. So I just reached out. I did think it was something valuable, so I did pick it up.
Okay,
And then when I seen that it wasn't nothing but some keys, I was like, well, heck, give it to my daughter to play with. And
So, you pick these keys up out of the ditch,
yes, sir.
and you give them to your 1-year-old daughter in the stroller to play with.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, did you all continue to go on your walk at that point?
No, sir. We were actually coming back to the house.
Okay, you were coming back from.
Yes, sir.
You had been out walking.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so your daughter had them playing with them.
Yes,
you all
sir.
got back to your residence,
Yes, sir.
and then at what point did Miss Tyner get involved?
When I had got her out of the stroller, she was walking into the house, and then Mary had seen him and, took him away from her and stuff because she said she shouldn't be playing with stuff on the side of the road. And that's when she seen the Benz Auto on it, and she immediately called Tyler Mills.
Okay. So it was Mrs. Tyner who decided to call Mr. Mills.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you indicated, do you recall doing a statement for the Panola County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell me how you came to do this statement.
I done when he got there, he asked me how it happened, and I wrote down what we were doing, and what I did, and how we, and just brought it back to him.
Certainly. Now, Mr. King, I'm not trying to trip you up, but isn't it a fact that Detective or Agent Tyler Mills actually wrote this statement with your permission?
Yes, sir.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. King, I want you to take a look at this. I just want to make sure that that's that statement that you recall.
Yes, sir.
That it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's pretty accurate, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, in your statement, you indicate that you picked up the keys and you put them in the bottom of the stroller. But your testimony today is your daughter actually had them and she played with them until you made it back home.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you also indicated that you had Miss Turner to call Tyler Mills, but in fact, it was Miss Turner's idea to call Mr. Mills once she observed the markings on the keys. I think you said Ben's.
Yes, sir.
Chambers. What was it? Chambers Body Shop? Or?
Yes, sir. Diesel and body shop.
Okay. So it was her idea, not yours.
No, sir.
Okay. And it indicates here that you grabbed a paper towel and picked the keys up out of the stroller.
Yes, sir.
But that's not in fact what happened, right? Your daughter
No, sir.
had those.
Yes, sir.
How long did she play with those keys, Mr. King?
I'm gonna say approximately maybe 5-6 minutes.
Okay. So, Mr. Mills, you know him personally?
Not personally.
Okay, how do you know him?
From numerous of times he's done pulled me over and stuff in Cortland.
Okay, just from your interactions with him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know whether or not Miss Tyner called him on his personal cell phone, or did she call him at the sheriff's
I
department?
have no idea.
Okay, but she called him. How long did it take him to come out to your residence?
Probably about 20-30 minutes.
Okay, so about half an hour,
Yeah,
20 minutes?
something like
And
that.
I'm not trying to get an exact.
I got you.
Just an estimation.
Yeah, probably approximately about 20-30 minutes.
Certainly. During this time, where were the keys?
The keys were on the hood of a car
Okay,
and
now,
a paper towel.
so they actually did get placed on the hood of a car
Yes.
and the paper towel. Whose idea was it to do that?
When Mary took the keys away from her, she put them in a paper towel and stuck them on the hood of the car.
Okay. So then, Agent Mills came to the house and he questioned you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you, is this the only time that you've spoken with Agent Mills in regard to this incident?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So he came out, he questioned you, and you told him basically what you testified to today.
Yes, sir.
As far as you finding those keys.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what prompted the two of you to take the keys back out to where you found them?
But he asked where did we find them at, and we took them back down there, placed them where I found them at, and took photos, and then he, put them in evidence and brought them, I guess, to the police station.
Okay. So now, and please correct me if I misstate your testimony, but when you were being questioned by the district attorney, you indicated that you put them almost.
Yeah.
So you were.
After I picked them up, I didn't mark it or anything, so, it had to be approximately where I found them at.
Right. And so that was your best guess as to where you
Yes.
found them? Okay. Did anything happen after that?
No.
Okay. Did y'all actually take pictures when y'all
Yes.
went back out?
Yeah.
Who took those pictures?
Tyler Mills took the picture.
So he took those pictures of the keys sitting in the grass when you had showed where the keys were found?
Yes.
Okay. How long were you all actually out at the scene where the keys were located on the second occasion?
Approximately 30-45 minutes.
So you stayed out there about 30 or 45 minutes?
Yes.
What took so long?
We looked around in the area, see if anything else was found.
Okay. Did you find anything else?
I mean, after I placed the keys back where I found them from, I went back to my residence.
Okay.
And they stayed down there, took pictures and stuff. So,
Do you recall who was with Agent Mills?
I know, sir, I don't.
Okay. So you went out, placed the keys, and left.
Yes.
Were you there long enough to witness them taking the pictures?
Yes.
Okay. Ask the court's indulgence.
You may.
King, I want to be clear on something. You were coming back from a stroll with your daughter.
Yes.
And you saw these keys over to the side of the road.
Yes.
Is there a ditch there or is it a flat surface?
It's a ditch, but it really ain't a ditch. It's like a little gully.
It's a gully.
Yeah, it's not deep or anything like that. You know, it's approximately like that. It's
So it
in
kind
front-
of goes down a little bit like
No,
that?
it's not that deep. It's
Not that
just,
deep?
Yeah, it's just like a little gully.
It's not a flat area, is it?
No.
Okay, there's a gully.
Yes.
We call them a ditch in Canada.
Yeah, it's not even that deep.
Okay. And this was in December of 2014, correct?
Which leaves and stuff were on the ground.
There was a bunch of leaves. Do you recall there being any other items around?
No, sir.
And I guess what I'm trying to get at is when you took Agent Mills back out to the scene where you estimated the keys were located,
Yes, sir.
what did you use as a marking to assist you in getting
I done
close
it
to the location?
From the driveway to the big gully. It's, you know, like I said, it's in front of a house.
Okay.
So it was like in between. And that's how I marked it.
Certainly. Do you know who lives in the house?
No, I don't.
Okay. You didn't know, do you know now?
No, I don't. I still don't.
Okay, this was 2 houses down from where you lived for like 4 years, right?
Yes, but it was across the street, and they had just built the house.
Okay.
And the people had just moved in and hadn't been there long.
Certainly. How do you know they had just moved in?
Because like I said, I stayed there. I know.
You saw them moving in, not
Yeah,
to...
I've seen them move in. They've been there maybe a month or two before all this happened.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. King. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Redirect.
When you're walking back to your house, which would be from the direction of the crime scene back to your house, is that right?
Direct.
What side of the road is it on?
It would be on your left-hand
Okay,
side.
left-hand side. Is that going to be the north side of the road? Do you know? Okay.
It's the only house on there where there's a trailer. There's a trailer down before you get up the hill, and that's the only brick house that just been built right there.
This jury is going to ultimately see that area, but you gave him an approximate location where you found the keys, correct?
Correct.
And you know it was in front of what?
It was in front of that house.
In that little dip or gully?
Yes, sir.
And did you place the keys there for Tyler Mills to take pictures?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, that's all the questions I have of Mr. King. I would ask he be finally released and free to go.
All right, sir, you may leave, and you can either leave the courthouse or you may stay in the courtroom if you please.
Thank you, sir.
They call you next witness.
Tyler Mills.
Thank you. Please solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, sir, excuse me.
State your name for the record.
Tyler Mills,
Tyler, or Mr. Mills, where are you currently employed?
Panola County Sheriff's Department.
And in what capacity are you with the Panola County Sheriff's Department?
I'm a criminal investigator at this time.
And in December the 6th of 2014, where were you employed?
Panola County Sheriff's Department as a narcotics officer.
But you were still with the SO.
Yes, sir.
And on December the 8th of 2014, 2 days later, and I'm going to back you up, you're aware of the events involving Jessica Chambers on December 6, 2014.
I am.
And were you aware on December 6, 2014?
Yes.
And You are from the area of Cortland.
Yes, sir.
Is that a large area?
No, sir.
On December the 8th of 2014, that would be on a Monday, were you working that day?
I was
And where were you located working?
at the sheriff's department at the time.
And did you take a call at the sheriff's department?
Yes, sir.
And who was the caller?
Mary Tyner.
Did you know who Mary Tyner was?
I did.
And did you know Mary Tyner to be the girlfriend of someone?
I did.
Who was that person?
Jerry Lee King.
And Mr. King stated he knew you because you'd pulled him over a few times.
I have.
Did you know where Mr. King lived?
I did.
And what were you advised in that call?
That they had found a set of keys on the side of Main Street in Cortland.
What was the significance of that set of keys?
They believed it was Jessica Chambers' keys because it had a Benz auto and diesel like key tag on it.
And did you strike out to Cortland?
I did.
And just so the jury knows, where's the sheriff's department and the jail located?
North Batesville.
Okay, so it's other side of Batesville, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, you went to Cortland?
Yes, sir.
And did you go to 124 Main Street?
I did.
And who did you make contact at 124 Main Street?
Made contact with Mary Tyner and Jerry Lee King.
Did they also have a child with them?
Yes, sir.
And what did they show you when you arrived?
A set of keys that was sitting in a paper towel on the hood of a car.
And did you observe the keys?
I did.
Did you collect the keys?
I did.
Did you contact anybody regarding the phone call and you going to Main Street with the sheriff's department?
I kind of let Major Barry Thompson know.
And did he ask you to go get them?
He did.
So tell me how when you locate the keys and you believe them to be an item of evidence, how do you collect them?
Have latex gloves on, and it's sort of what kind of item it is with the keys. I put them inside of a plastic evidence bag.
Do you also have paper evidence bags?
Yes, sir, I do.
And is that what you did in this particular case?
I do. Yes, sir.
And did you question, excuse me, Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Investigator Mills, I previously had an item marked for identification purposes, Exhibit 2. Can you identify the handwriting on the front?
That is Major Barry Thompson's handwriting.
And what is the description of enclosed evidence?
Keychain with ropes and tags.
And who is it collected by?
Collected by myself, Tyler Mills.
Would you give the date of collection and time of collection?
Date of collection is 12/8/2014. Time of collection is 15:45, which is 3:45.
And these, in fact, the keys you collected from Jerry King.
Yes, sir.
And the location where collected?
Main Street in Cortland.
Excuse me, this is the bag. Without taking them out, I'm going to let you look down in the bag. Is that, in fact, the exact set of keys that you collected on this day?
Yes, sir.
And you bagged them up as evidence?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to move Exhibit 2 for identification and into evidence as an exhibit.
Any objection, counsel? All right. Being no objection, they'll be marked and admitted. That'll be 19. 20. Oh, Exhibit 2, that's right, it's marked for ID first. Okay, I'm sorry.
Once you collected the keys, did you question Jerry King about where he picked them up?
Yes, sir. I asked him where he had located them at.
And was he able to show you where he located them?
In approximately vicinity, yes, sir.
And I believe, how far was that location from his home approximately?
It's a couple houses down.
Not far or far away?
Not far at all.
Okay. And what was, in the area where the keys were found, were they located on the north side of the road or the south side of the road?
Probably the north side.
And was there anything around the keys? Were there any structures around the keys?
Just a house right behind where the keys were located.
Where were the keys located in regards to the house?
Right outside they're right outside the road, right there at the edge of a little small ditch in the front yard of the house.
In the front yard of the house?
Yes, sir.
And did you have Mr. King point that area out?
Yes, sir.
And were the keys placed back at that location?
Yes, sir.
And did you take 5 photographs of differing angles and, say, zooms?
Yes, sir.
Agent Mills, I'm going to show you a spread of 5 photographs from far away to close up. Can you describe and identify these photographs for me?
Yes, sir. The top left photo is approximately sitting right there at the intersection of Main Street and
Why
Heron
don't
Sub.
you stand down, put
Yes.
that on the easel, and let him do that for the jury's benefit, please. You can stand down, sir.
Okay.
You may.
Agent Mills, I'm showing you 5 photographs. Can you identify these photographs? Oh, not by, just, can you identify them, yes or no?
Yes, sir. Those are photos that I've taken.
And are those photographs of the keys that have already been placed in evidence as Exhibit 2?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would ask that this board with these 5 photographs be marked and received as an exhibit.
All right, any objection on counsel? It'll be so marked in it. Okay, officer, you can stand down now, sir.
Not supposed to do any everything.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You don't have to ask my permission, and we do this, you just can walk on over there.
Certainly, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Investigator Mills, Agent Mills, I referred to you. Will you actually explain these 5 photographs for the jury?
Yes, sir. This photograph right here is taken at the intersection of Main Street and Heron Sub in Portland. You see this driveway right here, just on the other side of the driveway is approximately where the keys were located.
Before you move on, the view that we're looking at right now, is that looking towards the crime scene where Jessica was found?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you come, this photograph right here is actually standing in the driveway that's pictured in this, seen in this picture right here, facing back towards the crime scene, with the keys in this small ditch right here with the leaves in it. This is taken from the road. As you can see, the keys are laying right here. The tree, the house is just right here to the side.
You can actually see the propane tank that
Yes.
belongs to that house?
Yes, sir. And the backyard fence that goes in the backyard. This is just a scene taken from about chest level picture taken down, and this is a close-up picture of the keys in the same location as right there.
Let me ask you, the pictures you described as picture number 1 and picture number 2, are they taken from the same angle?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Taken from right here, chest level, looking down, taken.
When I'm saying east to west or west to east?
Yes,
taken
sir.
from the
Same
direction?
location, same direction.
Again, I'm just asking you to describe this because the jury will be able to see this at some point.
Yes, sir.
Now, once you collected these keys, did you in fact show Major Barry Thompson where you collected them from?
Yes, sir.
And you have photograph evidence of that?
Yes, sir.
Let's see, Tom. You don't need it. Agent Mills, once you collected the keys and photographed the keys, who did you take them to?
Major Barry Thompson.
And were they turned over to him at that point?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't have any further involvement in the investigation of the death of Jessica Chambers?
No.
Your Honor, I turn it over with. Roll.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Agent Mills.
Afternoon.
You have been you're still employed by the Panola County Sheriff's Department, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've been employed for how long?
Almost 12 years.
12 years.
Yes, sir.
Continuously?
Yes, sir.
So that means at the time of this incident, you would have been there 9 years, 10 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. During that time period, that time period of December 6, 2014,
Yes, sir.
what was your title with Panola County
I was a
Sheriff's
narcotics officer.
Department? A narcotics officer?
Yes, sir.
A uniform narcotics officer?
No, sir. Plain clothes.
Plain clothes?
Yes, sir.
Just briefly, what did you do as a narcotics officer?
I just worked any narcotic cases that the sheriff's department handled, misdemeanor to felony.
Was part of your responsibility also investigating homicide cases?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you ever participated in a homicide investigation prior to Jessica Chambers?
I assisted the sheriff's department in locating witnesses or anything the sheriff's department needed.
Certainly. And would part of your duties involve the collection of evidence?
Yes, most of our evidence that I did at the time was the narcotics is take it from there, put it inside a bag, take it to the crime lab if need be.
Certainly. And that would be like in a narcotics situation,
Yes.
correct? What about in a situation such as this? Is there a protocol for that you would follow for the collection of evidence that you're going to use in a case, or a criminal case?
No, sir, I've never collected evidence in a criminal type investigation.
Okay. So this would have been the first time you collected evidence in a
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Now, you actually got a call from, well, who called you?
Mary Tyner?
Miss Tyner?
Yes, sir.
And where were you when she called you?
I was at the sheriff's department.
Did she call you directly, or did she just call the general number?
She called me directly.
Okay. Did she call you on your cell?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So she had your cell number?
Yes, sir.
How do you know Miss Tyner?
She is from the Cortland area and the Pope area.
Is she a friend of yours?
No, sir.
Okay. How would she have obtained your cell number?
She was confidential informant for me at the time.
Understood. Now, you received this call, that would have been on the 8th,
Yes, sir.
correct? And the homicide of Jessica Chambers occurred the night of December 6th.
Yes, sir.
So roughly about 36 hours? Roughly, and I'm not,
I guess.
you received the call on December the 8th,
Yes, sir.
correct? What time of the day was it?
In the afternoon?
Afternoon? Still light outside?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It gets dark around 5 o'clock in December. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir. 5:30.
Sure. But at the time you actually went out to the scene to meet with Mr. King, it was still daylight out.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you got to Mr. King's home, the keys were on the hood of a car,
Yes, sir.
wrapped in a paper towel.
Well, they weren't wrapped in it. They were just laying on top of the paper towel.
Okay. Do you have an understanding as to how they came to be in a paper towel?
I think they just, when they realized they saw the Benz Auto and Diesel, they just stuck it on paper towel, I guess.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, you indicated, and please correct me if I misstate your testimony, Officer Mills, but you indicated that when you received the call from Ms. Tyner, she was calling you in reference to the keys, which she thought had something to do with the homicide that occurred.
Well, she believed there to be Jessica Chambers' keys, yes.
Okay. Why did she believe that they were Jessica Chambers' keys?
Because they had the Benz Auto and Diesel tag on them.
Okay. So now when you're, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Agent Turner, when you're talking about, they believed that these were Jessica Chambers' keys based upon the diesel, auto, or it says Benz auto and diesel repair. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
That's, is there any other, was there anything else about these keys that Ms. Tyner communicated to you that led her to believe that they were Jessica Chambers' keys?
No, sir. She just said because it had the Benz auto and diesel repair thing on it.
Now that Benz auto and diesel repair tag, what does that look like to you?
Just a advertised type keychain.
Something that businesses typically pass out to people who do business with them?
Yes, sir.
Anything beyond, but when you spoke with her, that was the only reason she thought they were Jessica Chambers' keys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you went out and you spoke to Mr. King, and he told you about these keys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, other than your conversations with Mr. King, do you have any independent knowledge as to where those keys were?
No, sir.
Okay. So all of the knowledge that you have as to the location of those keys will come through you through Jerry Lee King?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My approach, Your Honor? Okay. Mr. Agent Mills? Agent Mills?
Yes, sir.
You took these pictures, correct?
Yes, sir.
And other than your conversations with Jerry Lee King, do you have any other information that would lead you to believe that this is where those keys are found?
No, sir.
Okay. When you found the key, or when you first encountered those keys, they were at Mr. King's home, were they not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Agent Mills, explain to the jury why you felt the need to take pictures of keys, of those keys.
Yeah, just in case they were part of the crime.
Okay?
Or just part of evidence for the crime.
In doing so, do you feel like maybe you have created a false perception?
No, sir.
Your information as to the location of the keys came from a defendant, correct?
No, sir.
Well, no, I apologize. Came from Mr. King.
Yes, sir.
You could have indicated in a report that Mr. King called you about a set of keys and described to you where those keys were found. Could you not?
He probably could have.
I mean, I'm saying you could have.
You saying I could have done that?
Yes.
No, sir, I couldn't have.
You had to take those keys back out, put them on the side of the road, and take pictures to show where they were found.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other reason for doing that?
Just did it so we know approximately the area where they were found.
That's the question, Dawson. Yes, sir. Mr. Mills,
Yes, sir.
when you were speaking to Mr. King, did you ascertain whether or not he knew Jessica Chambers?
I did not.
Did you ascertain whether what was the name of the young lady that called you again?
Mary Tyner?
Miss Tyner. Did you ascertain whether Miss Tyner knew Jessica Chambers?
No, sir, I didn't.
And I guess did you even have a conversation in that regard with them?
No, sir.
Okay. And now, you were in narcotics, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you know the detective who would have been, if there is such a thing, was there someone at Panola County who would have been dedicated to investigating homicides?
I think all the investigators rotate through. It's our according who's on call that week, but the major crime detective is Major Barry Thompson.
Major Barry Thompson?
Yes.
Is he someone who would be called normally in the case of a homicide?
Yes, sir.
Now, when Miss Turner called you, she indicated that she believed that these keys were related to a recent homicide, did she not?
Yes, sir.
Did it dawn on you to call Mr. Thompson to provide you some assistance in collecting this possible evidence?
I told him.
You did?
Yeah.
What instructions did he give you?
Go down there and get him.
So he told you to go get them?
Yes, sir.
Did he instruct you to take pictures of them?
Yes, sir.
Did he know that they had been moved?
No, sir, not at the time, no, sir.
Okay, you didn't know that they had been
I didn't know they'd been moved.
Attending the witness, Your Honor.
You the record?
When you collect evidence, like you did these keys, do you use the same process that you do to collect dope?
Yes, sir.
You collect it, bag it, and turn it in.
Yes, sir.
Is that doing your job?
Yes, sir.
When you went out there to get these keys, they were located at Jerry King's home.
Yes, sir.
Was it important to you to find out where he found them?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you did?
Yes, sir.
And was he able to describe in detail where he found them?
Yes, sir.
And so you took pictures of the keys in that area?
Yes, sir.
Also, on doing your job, did you take DNA samples? Did the sheriff's department take DNA samples from Mr. Tyner, Mr. King, and the child?
Yes, sir.
And the last thing that Mr. Peterson asked you about was how these keys would have been associated back to Jessica. And you mentioned the tag, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What color what do we commonly refer to with a girl?
Pink.
What color are these keys?
They got a pink lanyard and a pink, I believe it looks like a Germex holder on it.
And where you found these keys just a couple days before, what happened a quarter mile down the road?
They had a homicide.
And who was the victim?
Jessica Chambers.
If I don't have any further questions, I would ask this witness be finally excused.
All right. Officer, you're finally excused. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
May I approach? We're going to have to take just a moment, and the next witness is Major Thompson. Going to be a lengthy witness, so they've got some preparation to do. I'm not going to put you in recess. I'm just going to ask that you remain at ease in the jury box till they get all set up and ready for you, all right? Okay.
Major Thompson.
All right.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give involving this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Barry Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, where are you currently employed and in what capacity?
I'm the major of the Investigative Division for the Panola County, Mississippi Sheriff's Office.
And you did have some involvement at the beginning portion of the homicide of Jessica Chambers, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, that testimony we will get into tomorrow as I've instructed you, okay?
Yes.
Now, you also understand that there are numerous locations during the course of this investigation that have significance, is that correct?
Yes.
And you understand our intention to field trip, I call it, or bus the jury to those locations?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the area of Cortland?
I am.
Are you a longtime resident of that area?
39 plus years, yes.
Is that as long as you've been alive?
Yes.
And you're familiar with each one of the areas that you're aware we intend to take the jury to?
I am.
And we have prepared an aerial map that actually has some significant areas already pointed out. Can you actually identify this aerial map?
Yes, sir. That is an exploded view of the Cortland community,
Your Honor. Go ahead.
covering Highway 51, the main street in Cortland out to Herring Road.
And you're familiar with this area and certainly the points on this map?
I am.
Your Honor, I would ask that this aerial photograph be made an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Any objection by counsel? Your Honor. All right, it'll be so marked and admitted.
Major Thompson, you mind stepping down off the witness stand for me?
Yes.
Major Thompson, I've actually produced an exhibit previously marked as exhibit number 20 for the jury. There's certain areas I want to ask you about, the first of which is actually not on this map. Are you aware of where the car is located that was burned on December 6, 2014?
I am.
And where is that car located?
It's in the impound lot at the Panola County Sheriff's Office.
And since December the 6th or December the 7th of 2014, when it was moved to the impound lot at the Sheriff's Department, has that car left there?
No, sir.
Also, are you aware of the area of the crime scene in this case?
I am.
And where is that area located?
It is outside the actual city limits or town limits of the town of Cortland. It is on Herring Road, a rural county road in Panola County.
And is the entirety of Herring Road located in the same jurisdiction?
It is.
And what state is that located in?
State of Mississippi,
And what county is that located in?
Panola County.
And Panola County is split into judicial districts. Can you tell me which judicial district of Panola County that Herring Road is located in?
Yes, sir. It's in the 2nd Judicial District of Panola County.
Or what we commonly refer to as the south end?
Yes.
Kathy, can you hear? will you point out, I know it's already marked, but would you point out for the jury where the crime scene is located on Heron Road?
It's at the bottom left corner of the map, right here at this red dot.
And approximately a quarter mile away, is there a location where you're aware that a set of keys were collected?
That's correct. At the time, Agent Mills, now Detective Mills, collected a set of keys right there on Heron Street.
And when you leave the crime scene, as the jury will be leaving, and go to the location of the keys, and keep traveling in the same direction, what do you come into?
We'll come into the physical township of Cortland.
And there's some railroad tracks in Cortland.
Yes.
Okay. And right next to the railroad tracks, this building, what is it actually?
Cortland Volunteer Fire Department.
Now, we're going to take the jury to an area that we referred to as an access road at Daniel Cole's residence. Are you aware of that particular road?
I am.
And would you point out Daniel Cole's residence for the jury in this case?
Daniel Cole's residence, part of this may actually be on top of it, but I believe it's going to be right in this area right here.
And that particular road, Daniel Cole's already testified. Where does it go to right up the hill?
It comes out at the back of Otto Sanford subdivision. It's a rural subdivision off of Highway 51.
And who of significance lived in Otto Sanford subdivision during December of 2014?
Quentin Tellis' sister, Ray Gann.
And I believe her name is Shanika Williams.
That's correct.
And her residence is also pointed out in Otto Sanford subdivision. Would you point out her residence for the jury?
It'll be this red dot right here.
And can you actually see that access road or the outline of that access road on this map?
Somewhat, you'll see where it travels through the woods right here. It'll be this dark, this opening that it'll be shaded in this picture, scenario photo that shows the shading.
And finally, we're going to take them to an area that they've already heard as is M&M Grocery or Gurley's.
Yes.
And obviously it's already marked, but point out M&M Grocery for the jury.
It's the red dot sitting right on top of M&M Grocery parking lot right here at the top right corner.
And the last place is going to be the residence of Quentin Tellis.
Yes.
Would you point that out for the jury?
It is just south and east of that red dot right here in this lower portion right here will be this red dot will be the location of the Tellis residence.
Now, just for the jury's sake and certainly to eliminate being at these scenes for a lengthy amount of time, going back to the impound lot at the Sheriff's Department, the car is there.
Yes.
And the jury will be able to view the car as it existed on December the 6th of 2014.
Yes.
As to the crime scene, we've heard testimony about a car being wedged in an area of the crime scene. Are you able to identify that area for the jury?
Yes, I will be able to point that area out. You can still see the burning on the trees, and there's a fence there that's still in the same location it was. There's some small trees that are in the same location there was. You may actually see some scarring on those trees where the door was forced into those trees while the car was being moved.
Well, let me ask you, the fence and the gate are still present?
Yes.
I believe there's been mention to a sapling that was outside the driver's door. Is that particular tree still there
Yes.
as of today?
It was there the last time I was there, yes.
And right up the road, the location of the keys, are you going to be able to point out the location of where the keys were located and photographed?
Yes.
And moving on to Daniel Cole's residence, you're actually going to be able to point out Daniel Cole's residence for the jury as well as the entrance to that access road that goes up the hill.
Yes.
In Otto Sanford subdivision or at Ray Gann's house, can you identify where that access road, I'm going to call it, dumps into Otto Sanford subdivision or ends into Otto Sanford subdivision?
Yes.
And were you able to identify the area of Ray Gann's home in connection with where that road comes out?
Yes.
Finally, at M&M's grocery store, are you aware that there was a camera at M&M's that actually pointed in the direction of the Tellis home?
Yeah, there was a closed circuit TV system at the time that was there. It had several cameras on it, and one of those cameras did point in what would be a southeasterly direction that would cover that portions of that residence and driveway.
And are you going to point out that particular camera for the jury?
Yes.
And are they going to be able to walk into and through M&M's convenience store?
Yes, sir.
And finally, as we move down to the residence of Quentin Tellis, are there multiple areas of significance at Quentin Tellis's home?
Yes, sir, there should be 3 that we will talk about.
Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you, off of Highway 51, is there a main driveway that goes to Quentin Tellis's residence?
Yes,
And on that driveway, how many structures are located there?
I believe it's 2. It's going to be a shed out front and then a mobile home behind it.
Okay, well, explain to me what you mean by a shed out front.
There's what I would call a small storage shed. As you go in the driveway to your left, there sits a small storage shed there. And then behind that is a parking area and then a mobile home.
And is there also a driveway just south of the driveway you just mentioned?
Yes, sir, that'll be the driveway here.
And is there we refer to as an area south of the home, but a grassy area that is significant to this investigation?
Yes, sir, when we get into further testimony, it will become of a significance, yes, sir.
And you're going to point out that particular area for the jury to view tomorrow?
Yes.
Your Honor, for the purpose of examination here today and laying the foundation for the areas that we're going to go to tomorrow, that's all the state has.
All right. Mr. Thompson, you can stand down, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, the way this is playing out here, the next presentation of evidence will be in the morning, where you'll be transported down to these various points that have been identified to you. I'll give you some more instructions exactly how you're to conduct yourselves while you're there. I'll just tell you now that what I'm going to require you to do is to stay in a closely confined area together, like you are now, okay? Even though you're going to be outside, I'm going to ask that you not mingle and mix with people that may be down in there, and stay together with yourself. We're going to have bailiffs with you, of course, but that's vitally important to these proceedings, that you all stay together as a body. So I will go over that again with you tomorrow, and so that we can all of us be on the same page. All right? The defendant in this case, through his attorneys, will be allowed full and complete cross-examination of Mr. Thompson tomorrow, covering what he's testified to here today and what he will testify to there at the scene tomorrow. So although we are doing this a little differently, but that will be the procedure that I will follow tomorrow. All right? So with that said, I'm going to bid you good night after my admonition about your cell phones again. I'm going to allow you the privilege of using those for a short period of time tonight to check with your loved ones in your home, at your homes, and then we will take them back up like we did last night. That seemed to work okay. Hate I have to be that strict on you, but I have to be certain that your sanctity is protected. Well, I think that's all I want to say to you now. So I'm going to ask you not to discuss the case again among yourselves. Please don't talk about anything that you've seen today or anything that you think might happen tomorrow. Just keep it to yourself, and I will check with you again first thing in the morning. So I'm going to put you down for the evening, okay? So you'll follow the bailiffs, please. Thank you. Judge. 9 o'clock. According to my notes, we had 18 witnesses today. That's warp speed. Do either side need to see me in chambers before we adjourn for the day? No, sir, Your Honor. All right. I will see you all in the morning. Be here a little early in the morning so we can go over some things, and I will see you then in the morning. So we now stand in recess.
Oh.